Saitama gets the crowd pumped up at the Super Fight tournament, and Genos goes out in the streets to smack some monsters down. The Super Fight Monster Invasion arc intensifies in another pretty exciting episode of One Punch Man, which is another episode that, in my humble opinion, unfortunately pulled the punches. And not just figuratively speaking, during the entire Super Fight tournament, they are consistently cutting away from the fights. And I have to say that as a fan of the series, as a show that's built upon the foundation of being a big, awesome action show, that's kind of disappointing. The good news, however, is that we do get to see plenty of other heroes battling against monsters. In fact, I would say that one of the highlights of this episode is that we got to see Genos fighting against 4 different creatures, even though the fights themselves were pretty short. And honestly, they actually featured some pretty cool animation. But everything going on in Super Fight, I have to be perfectly honest with you guys, is kind of disappointing me, and is basically serving the purpose of just trying to keep Saitama away from the main story of everything that's actually going on with this big monster invasion. That being said, it's still really funny to see Saitama casually walk into the ring and just completely make a fool out of his opponents. But mostly it looks like they're also trying to build up this other fighter, this martial artist who goes by the name of Suiryu, or at least that's how I think it's pronounced. He's a pretty boy, and just like his actual appearance would show, he's kind of a dick. He's really full of himself, and the only reason he's in this tournament in the first place is basically just to get some more street cred and to make everybody look like a bunch of scrubs. Which he's doing. In fact, the biggest fight that he has in this episode is against a returning character from the first season, Snakebite Snek. One of my favorite characters from the first season, mostly for his visual design of wearing a suit which looks like it's made out of a boa constrictor. But here, Snek is here to sort of reaffirm why he's a hero, why he needs to get stronger, and unfortunately, his opponent is a total cock bastard. Suiryu basically barrages him with a bunch of insults about the fact that there's a lot of strong heroes out there that are clearly way stronger than he is, so why is he even wasting his time in the first place? He should just give up and throw in the towel. This, of course, just pisses him off even more, and then he eventually gets defeated by him. Pretty much every opponent that Suiryu runs into, he pretty much just ends up defeating them, and he's sort of been inspired by Saitama to do the same thing, take them out in one punch. And speaking of Saitama, like I said, again, basically he just enters the ring and starts kicking some ass. He actually goes up against this one fighter who goes by the name of Bakuzan, who I was hoping would do something really awesome, especially the way that they were building him up. Especially this one scene where all of the people who are like running the cameras and the live feed of the Super Fight tournament are realizing that all of these monsters are attacking multiple cities and they're actually closing in on the event, but Bakuzan's like, look, it's no problem, we don't need to up security. If monsters came in here, it would be incredibly bad for them. This is very safe, we got the strongest fighters in the world in this place, all in one spot, they're going to be fine. So I was kind of hoping that Bakuzan would give us at least something kind of cool, and when he goes up against Saitama, he basically demonstrates all of his killer techniques of how he's just going to break his bones and have his just guts splatter all over the place, and of course, Saitama's like, yeah, what's up, bitch? Bah! But ultimately, that's all that's really going on with the Super Fight. They move from fight to fight, and they barely show it at all. It's basically there as just sort of like the B story. The real A story is definitely the big monster invasion that's going on, and most of this episode was dedicated to Genos fighting against a bunch of creatures, punching them, choking them out, and completely making fools out of them, and some of them actually look kind of cool. There's this one monster dude whose apparently his entire shtick is to rip off the faces of people. He looks kind of like a stereotypical serial killer, but he's got a really creepy design where his skin is all stitched together and he has these giant blades. But the biggest opponent that Genos goes up against is this hilarious looking cockroach man. Kind of looks like, you know, what the Tick would wear if he were actually a cockroach. And it's kind of funny how Genos always seems to have some sort of weird grudge against all of these bug type monsters. And this battle here, I have to say, even though it was very short-lived, was one of the cooler looking action scenes that I've seen in a couple of episodes. So I really appreciated that, and I really love that he always comes up with like a brand new trick to fight against his opponents. He has this like weird glue that comes out of his feet, which is basically the stuff that you see in a roach motel. So it was very appropriate that he was able to stop him, and apparently this was sort of a failsafe when he was going up against really fast opponents like Sonic or someone who could be potentially faster than him, and he's able to take out Cockroach Man. But suddenly, Genos is attacked by a mysterious monster, and before we can even see who that is, we cut back to Fubuki, who's battling against the bondage chick, who the only reason that she's even fighting here is that she actually wants to go up against Tatsumaki. Well, since she's going up against Fubuki, that's going to be no problem, as apparently Tatsumaki can sense whenever her sister is in danger or has sustained a ton of damage, and like her name would imply, like a freaking tornado, she just comes into town and completely wrecks the place. While I don't like Tatsumaki very much as a character, mostly just because she annoys the hell out of me because of how incredibly arrogant she is, they even use a scene where she talks down to her sister and they draw her in that weird sort of cartoony form. I have to admit, she's still pretty freaking cool. I love when she tosses the body of this monster right in front of the bondage chick, who's just... This monster shouldn't even be able to talk. It's just like a giant twisted body covered in blood. It's crazy and insane. And of course, Tatsumaki has to sort of reprimand her sister a little bit, saying she doesn't need to rely on all these people and all these goons. She simply just needs to rely on her own strength. Again, I'm Team Fubuki. Fubuki is best girl of One Punch Man. But the episode does a pretty good job of actually building up more of this big monster invasion arc. We get a number of new characters who are introduced. I think the guy that actually attacked Genos is this monster which goes by the name of Goketsu. They don't really give us a very good look at the character, but he's big, he's bulky, and he's got spiky hair. We also get to see that there's a monster who's going after Puri Puri Prisoner, who of course, as his name would imply, is in prison, but he seemed to bust out to fight against a bunch of monsters, and it's this weird, lanky-looking cat man. And it looks like we even get our very first look at the main villain of this arc, this very imposing, massive-looking monster who goes by the name of Orochi. I don't know what this guy's deal is. I think they show him in the intro a close-up of his face, but this guy looks incredibly gnarly and kind of reminds me a lot of the other monsters we saw from the first season, kind of like the Deep Sea King. All I know is, while this episode was basically more of the same, it is getting me pumped up to see what's actually going to be happening next. So what's the rundown on this episode of One Punch Man? I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed in the Super Fight Tournament. I just want to see more of the actual battles, and while a lot of these characters are probably not all that important at the end of the day, I still want to see some action. This is One Punch Man, damn it. This is a series which is basically built upon delivering ridiculous and over-the-top fight scenes. That and the fact that, where the hell was Garo this entire episode? I mean, to me, Garo has been probably the best part about Season 2 thus far, so to see an entire episode where he doesn't make a single appearance, I have to say, kind of deflated me a little bit. That being said, this episode did give us a lot of Genos action, which is always really fun to see. He's the glorified, real main character of the series. Saitama himself is kind of a plot device, but Genos is always there to give us some really great action, and I loved the monsters he was fighting against. I love watching his distinctive fighting style, and I love his giant flamethrower robot arms. They're always really cool to see, and like I said, some of the animation during the Cockroach Man fight was really freaking awesome. It was also a pleasant surprise to see the return of Tatsumaki doing what she does best, one-upping every single person. That being said, like I said, I'm all Team Fubuki all the way. With that in mind, I still think that this was a pretty fun episode from a storytelling standpoint, and I wasn't really disappointed all that much. I'm still very excited to see where this is going, but ultimately, to me, this is still kind of more of the same material. I was originally going to give this episode a 3 out of 5, just being kind of average, but I did find myself enjoying a lot of aspects of this episode, which is why I'm going to bump it up to a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed where this is going. I love all the teasing with the new villains. Arguably, to me, and that all the stuff with Genos is what's got me really excited here. So, yeah, 4 out of 5 from me. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the episode. You can tell me all of them in the comment section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of One Punch Man Season 2. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay damn, baby.